this is a little intro to precipitation. And how do we spell that word? Precipitation. Precipitation. Okay, so you might have heard of precipitation like in terms of rain, when you get bits of rain on your window. That's not what we're talking about. So what we're talking about with precipitation is when a solid forms when we mix two liquids together. So having a look here, remember when I said that when we have a salt and it dissolves, it might look something like this. So this is sodium chloride, and I have my sodium and I've got my chloride, and they're all just floating around because they've dissolved. So all these ions are separate from each other now, and they're just floating around. So that's that sodium chloride in solution. So we say aqueous because it's in water. Silver nitrate, that's soluble as well. So the ions would be floating around too. So NO3, Ag, NO3, they're all just floating around. Okay, now I just want to check my valencies for those two. Silver is, yep, that's correct. Good. So those ions are just floating around. All right, so what would happen if I poured this solution into that one? Okay, so we've got a big beaker. Now I've poured all this in there. So in this water now, I'm going to have Na, I'm going to have Cl, okay, they're going to be floating around, but I'm also going to have the nitrate ion floating around and the silver ion floating around. So they're all just floating around now. Okay, now what can happen is that this nitrate, so this nitrate here, might look at this sodium and think, you're positive, I'm negative, maybe we'll work out. So they might actually come and join together, okay? And a combination like this may result in a solid, but we have to think about that, okay, and analyze whether that might happen using our solubility table. So another combination that could occur, which is different to before, would be the chloride and the silver. So the chloride might look at the silver and think, well, you're positive and I'm negative, we might work out as well. So this could be another combination that occurs. So what I've written here is exactly what I've got written here. Silver chloride, so that's my other combination which is possible, and my sodium nitrate. All right, now the reason why I'm talking about this is that when one of these isn't soluble in water, okay, isn't soluble, it actually forms a solid. So if we look at our solubility table, I can look at that table and see that this is actually soluble. So these two ions will actually stay floating around. They won't come together and form a solid. These two, if I look at my solubility table, I find out that this combination is insoluble and it will form a solid when they come together. So they actually come together, join up, okay? These two are still separate even though we write them as together, okay? So these two actually come together and form a solid, and often we might see that. Okay, so in that beaker, it might all of a sudden get a little bit of solid on the bottom, or it might just look a bit cloudy, okay, because the solid's sort of mixed into the whole solution. But what you can see there, the solid that's being formed, is called the precipitate. So this is just a little bit of an intro. It's a lot of information to take in. But just that idea of we've got two solutions of these ions floating around. Okay, they're both soluble, they're both just floating around. And then we put them in together, and then a new combination might occur where one forms a solid. And we see it. We see it in real life. We see it as either cloudiness or a solid being formed at the bottom of the beaker. And that's called the precipitate. So we're going to be having a look at these equations and writing them out and testing them out and doing all sorts of things, but that was just a little bit of an intro.